Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Ancient Epics, the place where the greatest stories of humanity come back to life. Long before the rise of the vast cities that would come to dominate continents, long before the arrival of iron blades or great stone temples, there existed a world where the winds carried secrets now almost forgotten. Hidden within the soil of ancient plains, sheltered beneath forest canopies, and woven into the quiet rhythms of early settlements, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of a striking truth that rarely finds its place in the grand narratives of early history. Across the earliest societies of the Americas, the influence of women was not a marginal footnote nor a fleeting anomaly. It was a force that shaped economies, spiritual life, kinship structures, and the stability of entire communities. In some regions, women held the keys to land inheritance, deciding the fate of harvests that thousands depended upon. In others, they guided the astronomical rites marking the turning of the seasons. In still others, they served as healers, ceremonial keepers, and organizers of trade networks stretching across rivers, deserts, and mountain passes. Some of the oldest sacred objects discovered on the continent bear the imprint of fingers that shape clay, stone, and fiber with a precision that reveals mastery, purpose, and cultural memory. These truths, buried by time, are slowly re-emerging as researchers sift through centuries of soil and silence. Radiocarbon analyses reveal networks of early farming communities whose crops were tended primarily by women. Microscopic residues on grinding stones show traces of maize, wild greens, and roots prepared by hands that nourished entire villages. Settlement patterns reveal homes arranged around matrilineal lines, suggesting that lineage traveled not through fathers but through mothers. And ritual offerings found in caves and near lakes hint that women played roles in early ceremonies that sought harmony with the hidden spirits of the land. From the northern woodlands to the vast southern tropics, the story of early American societies is inseparable from the story of the women who sustained them. The tale begins in an age when settlements remained small, when fires glowed softly against the dusk, and when the earliest farmers looked to the sky for guidance. At this time, the climate of the continent shifted slowly, bringing warmer temperatures and new patterns of rainfall. Vast herds that once roamed the plains migrated or diminished, pushing many communities to rely increasingly on foraged plants, cultivated grains, and communal storage. Within this transformation, women emerged as the primary custodians of the new agricultural rhythms. Through centuries of observation, they learned the subtle language of seeds, how they responded to rain, to soil, to wind, and to sunlight. The earliest domesticated varieties of maize, beans, and squash all bear marks of careful selection, a process believed to have been guided largely within the domestic sphere where women spent long hours preparing food, preserving harvests, and tending gardens close to the settlement. Archaeological traces of these gardens still lie beneath layers of earth. Long parallel planting ridges show early experimentation with water flow. Charred seed stores found in ancient hearths reveal years of surplus carefully dried for lean seasons. Such discoveries point to women not only as cultivators, but as innovators who pushed back against hunger through patience and knowledge. Beyond the fields, women played a quiet yet vital role in the shaping of early trade. Across thousands of miles, rivers served as ancient highways carrying shells, pigments, seeds, medicinal herbs, and woven fiber from community to community. Many of the earliest weaving traditions appear to have developed in the hands of women, whose textiles were traded as both practical goods and ceremonial offerings. Some fiber artifacts discovered in dry caves, preserved for thousands of years, show patterns and knot techniques still faintly echoed in later cultures. These textiles were more than simple garments. They were records of identity, lineage, and cosmology. Through them, ancient storytellers encoded symbolic patterns representing mountains, animals, constellations, and spirits believed to guard the horizon. The night sky itself held profound significance for early communities. The motion of stars across the seasons determined farming cycles, gathering practices, and ritual observances. In some settlements, ceremonial spaces were aligned to the rising of brilliant constellations at solstice or equinox. Excavations reveal clay figurines and carved stones shaped with celestial symbols, some held in small domestic shrines. Many researchers believe that women, as keepers of the agricultural calendar, were essential observers of these cycles. Their watchful attention ensured that planting and harvest aligned with the movements of the heavens, binding earth and sky in a rhythm essential to survival. Spiritual life, too, bore the imprint of women's presence. Across early American societies, the boundary between daily life and the sacred was delicate and permeable. Ritual objects found near springs, mountain caves, and lake shores indicate offerings made by those seeking health, fertility, protection, or seasonal renewal. Many such offerings include figurines shaped to emphasize motherhood, sustenance, or the generative power of nature. These objects suggest reverence for the cycle of birth and growth, and therefore for the women whose bodies mirrored these natural rhythms. Healers, midwives, and ritual intermediaries emerged from this spiritual landscape, guiding communities through illness, childbirth, and seasonal transitions. Their knowledge of herbs and healing plants was profound. Seeds of wild tobacco, cacao residues, crushed chili peppers, and traces of medicinal roots appear in ancient vessels associated with healing rituals. Some of these plants contain natural compounds that modern science now recognizes for their antiseptic or stimulant properties. Their presence in early medicinal contexts testifies to a long tradition of experimentation and observation carried out within family groups, with women often acting as the primary custodians of this wisdom. The social structure of many early settlements also reflects a worldview centered on maternal lines. Houses were arranged in clusters where mothers, daughters, sisters, and their children lived in shared spaces, sometimes for generations. Agricultural tools, grinding stones, and storage vessels passed from one generation of women to the next, forming a chain of continuity. Within these households, men often traveled for hunting, trade, or seasonal labor. But the heart of the community remained anchored in the steady rhythms of those who kept the fields, organized the distribution of food, maintained ritual traditions, and ensured the survival of infants. Even burial sites reveal this social structure. In several ancient cemeteries, women were interred with goods signaling status, finely crafted ornaments, elaborate textiles, or ceremonial vessels. These objects reflect community recognition of their roles, suggesting leadership based not on conquest or martial achievement, but on stewardship, memory, and the continuity of tradition. As settlements expanded and agricultural yields increased, these maternal households grew into influential hubs that shaped the broader political landscape. Decisions about resource management, planting cycles, and inter-community alliances often centered around these family lines. Although warfare was not absent from early American history, many regions placed greater cultural value on negotiation and exchange, realms where women played critical roles. Their influence flowed through kinship ties, marriage alliances, and the steady maintenance of traditions that bound communities together. As time moved forward and generations layered their lives upon the foundations of the past, the influence of women in early American societies grew ever more visible in the ceremonial and political fabric of their world. The expansion of settlements brought new responsibilities, new social rhythms, and a rising need for shared identity across regions. Gathering places where surrounding communities converged at appointed times during the year. These gatherings were not merely occasions of trade or governance. They were moments when the deepest beliefs of the people were expressed through dance, offerings, song, and sacred procession. Within these spaces, women often carried responsibilities that were both practical and spiritual, roles that guided the entire community through the delicate transitions of each season. Archaeologists studying these centers have uncovered evidence of carefully designed plazas, earthen terraces, and ritual platforms aligned with solar events. At certain sites, long parallel lines of earthworks appear to frame the rising sun at solstice, casting shadows that mark the beginning of planting or the arrival of rains. Within these ritual landscapes, women served as keepers of seasonal knowledge, preparing offerings and maintaining ceremonial objects passed down through generations. Some of these items, such as intricately woven belts, clay figures, polished stone pendants, and seeds preserved in carved containers, reveal a symbolic language deeply connected to fertility, renewal, and the cycles of the earth. The craftsmanship of these objects demonstrates a refined understanding of material shells traded from distant coasts, pigments ground from mineral veins, and fibers drawn from native plants cultivated over centuries. When communities gathered for major ceremonies, women guided the preparation of ritual foods and beverages used to honor natural forces believed to sustain life. Grinding stones found in ceremonial context show traces of maize blended with herbs, flowers, and fruits. Many of these mixtures were reserved for sacred rites and consumed only during specific phases of the ritual calendar. Their preparation required knowledge of taste, texture, and symbolic meaning, ensuring that every offering reflected harmony between the community and the unseen world. In some regions, ceremonial fires were tended exclusively by women, who guarded the flames throughout the night as dancers traced ancient patterns across the plaza. These flames symbolized continuity, the unbroken thread linking ancestors to the living. The role of women extended beyond ceremonial preparation. In many settlements, they acted as the primary storytellers. Their stories carried not only the deeds of ancestors, but also the laws, moral boundaries, and cosmological teachings that shaped the daily choices of the community. Around evening fires, these stories taught children how to behave with honor, how to respect the spirits of the land, and how to cultivate the crops that sustained life. Over time, these storytellers became guardians of collective identity, ensuring that the lessons of past generations were not lost to the tides of change. Archaeological evidence of decorated pottery and carved figures suggests a long tradition of symbolic teaching, in which stories were embedded in patterns recognizable to those within the community. While women sustained the spiritual and cultural foundation of early American societies, they also played critical roles in guiding political alliances. In regions where lineage passed through the maternal line, political authority often rested within extended networks of mothers, sisters, and daughters. Leadership decisions, whether concerning land use, resource management, or marriages that bound communities together, were shaped within these kinship circles. Archaeological discoveries of large dwellings with multiple rooms connected along a central passage reveal living spaces designed for extended families. These structures, often associated with matrilineal organization, hint at the political power that emerged from the bonds shared among generations of women. Trade networks further expanded this influence. As certain agricultural surpluses grew, women took part in organizing the distribution of goods to neighboring settlements. Items such as dried maize, woven mats, medicinal herbs, and pigments traveled along well-established routes that followed rivers, valley floors, and mountain passes. Women maintained relationships with distant kin, preserving ties that allowed communities to withstand drought, crop failure, or external threat. The presence of non-local materials in household contexts, obsidian blades from far-off volcanic fields, marine shells carried hundreds of miles inland, and exotic dyes used in textile production, reveals the breadth of these networks. Such connections were not merely economic. Across vast distances, communities recognized similar symbols representing the life-giving forces of the earth, the protective spirits of the sky, and the ancestral guardians believed to dwell in mountains or beneath sacred waters. Women played central roles in maintaining this continuity of belief, shaping the ways in which stories were told and how rituals were practiced. Their influence ensured stability in a world shaped by shifting climates, migrating animals, and the unpredictable rhythms of seasonal rain. The natural environment also shaped the responsibilities of women as observers of ecological change. In forested regions, they gathered roots, nuts, and medicinal plants that required a deep understanding of seasonal cycles. In desert lands, they tended agave fields, harvested cactus fruits, and managed water stored in earthen jars buried beneath shaded shelters. Along the coasts, some communities relied heavily on fishing and the gathering of shellfish, tasks requiring knowledge of tides, currents, and weather patterns. Women stood as the environmental memory of their societies, passing down knowledge that enabled their communities to survive in landscapes of both abundance and challenge. Their roles also extended into early artistic expression. Some of the most ancient rock carvings and painted cave walls depict figures associated with fertility, moon cycles, or the sacred relation between humans and nature. While the exact creators of these artworks are often unknown, the emphasis on themes linked to domestic life, motherhood, and the rhythms of growth suggests contributions from women who carry deep knowledge of these cycles. Clay figurines uncovered in early settlements often portray forms that emphasize nurturing, protection, and the generative power of life. These artifacts, preserved across millennia, act as echoes of voices that once guided entire communities. Burial practices further reflect the respect accorded to women in early American societies. In some regions, graves of high-status women contain objects that symbolize authority shell necklaces polished to brilliance, pendants carved from meteorite fragments, and finely crafted pottery painted with geometric designs representing cosmic order. The placement of these items suggests that women acted as mediators between the earthly and the spiritual realms, roles that continued even beyond death. In certain cemeteries, the careful orientation of graves toward celestial events reveals beliefs linking the journey of the soul with the movement of the heavens. The political landscape evolved alongside these spiritual and economic responsibilities. As populations grew, leadership structures became more formalized. In some areas, councils of elders emerged, composed of individuals who held knowledge of ritual law, lineage, and community history. Women often served within these councils, kinship alliances, and the spiritual requirements of the community. Their leadership was not based on hierarchy enforced by military strength, but on accumulated wisdom, reputation, and the trust of those around them. This form of governance fostered stability through counsel rather than coercion. The influence of women also extended into conflict resolution. When disputes arose between families or neighboring settlements, women often acted as mediators. Their roles within kinship networks made them uniquely positioned to negotiate agreements that preserved harmony while protecting community interests. Ritual objects discovered near council sites, feather bundles, carved staffs, and woven belts may have been used during these negotiations. Such stability was essential as communities faced environmental shifts. Changing climate patterns altered the availability of water in some regions, while others experienced colder seasons or shifting animal migrations. Women, as custodians of agricultural and ecological memory, played a crucial part in adapting to these changes. Adjustments to planting techniques and the creation of innovative storage systems often originated within the domestic sphere, where women experimented with seeds, soils, and harvest preservation. Their resilience enabled settlements to endure through cycles of abundance and hardship, laying the foundations for fully developed civilizations that would emerge in later centuries. As centuries unfolded, early American societies grew increasingly complex, and the imprint of women upon their cultural landscape deepened in ways both subtle and immense. Expanding populations led to larger settlements, more intricate forms of governance, and broader networks of exchange. Yet beneath every shift in social organization lay the enduring foundations of maternal lineage, ecological knowledge, and ceremonial stewardship. These foundations served as anchors, allowing communities to adapt without losing sight of ancestral rhythms that had guided them for countless generations. In regions where agricultural systems flourished, women continued to refine methods of cultivation that shaped the prosperity of entire societies. Excavations reveal fields arranged in patterns designed to capture rainfall and prevent soil erosion, evidence of a sophisticated understanding of environmental management. These techniques required constant observation and awareness of shifting winds, the behavior of insects, and the timing of seasonal rains. Generations of women passed down this knowledge through quiet instruction woven into daily labor. Their understanding of the land allowed settlements to expand across plains, valleys, and riverbanks, transforming once wild landscapes into thriving mosaics of gardens, orchards, and fields. As farming intensified, so too did the importance of storage and distribution. Women developed increasingly advanced methods for preserving harvests, drying maize kernels, fermenting fruits, grinding grains into flour, and storing seeds in clay vessels sealed with natural resins. Some settlements constructed vast communal storage pits lined with woven mats and coated with protective layers of clay. These storage systems ensured that communities could withstand seasons of drought or unexpected scarcity. Control over these resources placed women at the heart of local economies, for it was within their collective wisdom that the stability of each household and, by extension, the entire settlement was secured. Beyond the realm of agriculture, women shaped the spiritual landscape with remarkable continuity. Each generation preserved rituals tied to the cycles of nature, often linked to lunar phases believed to influence planting, birth, and the rhythms of water. Archaeological evidence of lunar-aligned structures suggests that early communities observed the night sky with meticulous care. Women, whose lives were intimately tied to lunar cycles, acted as interpreters of these celestial rhythms. Their observations maintained the balance between human labor and the natural world, ensuring that agricultural decisions aligned with cosmic patterns considered essential for harmony. Ceremonial life evolved alongside these cosmological insights. Large ritual gatherings became increasingly elaborate, drawing neighboring settlements into shared celebrations. Women prepared sacred spaces with offerings shaped from clay, woven fibers, or seeds arranged in intricate patterns. These offerings embodied prayers for rain, protection, and abundant harvests. In some areas, ritual dancers adorned themselves with garments woven by skilled hands, garments that shimmered with feathers, beads, and painted symbols representing earth, sky, and ancestral guardians. The act of creating these garments was itself ceremonial, for each thread woven through the fabric carried meaning rooted in centuries of tradition. The role of women as healers also expanded. Their knowledge of medicinal plants grew more refined as communities encountered new species through trade or migration. Healers experimented with combinations of herbs to treat ailments ranging from fevers to digestive issues. Archaeological residues found in small ceramic bowls suggest mixtures of aromatic leaves, roots with antiseptic properties, and resins that aided in the healing of wounds. These practices reveal a level of sophistication grounded in close observation of the natural world. Women who mastered this knowledge became highly respected figures, called upon to guide communities through sickness, childbirth, and the transitions of life. Political structures, too, saw the continued influence of maternal lines. As settlements grew into regional centers, Councils of leaders guided decisions concerning water rights, land distribution, and alliances with neighboring groups. Women often held authority within these councils, particularly in matrilineal societies where inheritance and leadership passed through the female line. Their counsel carried weight not because of conquest or the accumulation of personal power, but because of the trust placed in their knowledge of lineage, history, and seasonal cycles. Leadership rested on continuity, wisdom, and the ability to maintain balanced qualities cultivated within generations of women who sustained the heart of the community. These leaders also played crucial roles in diplomacy. When tensions arose between settlements, women acted as intermediaries, drawing upon extended kinship ties to negotiate peace. Marriages arranged among allied communities strengthened bonds that reduced the likelihood of conflict. Through these networks, goods flowed across vast distances. Copper ornaments from northern lands, brilliant feathers from tropical forests, shells from distant coasts, and obsidian tools crafted from volcanic stone. Many of these items were exchanged during ceremonial gatherings led or organized by influential women, whose guidance ensured stability across regional networks. As societies expanded into new territories, migration brought both opportunity and challenge. Women often served as the carriers of cultural memory during these movements. Their stories preserved ancestral origins, guiding communities as they adapted to unfamiliar landscapes. Rituals associated with water, wind, mountains, and stars were maintained even when families settled in regions with different ecological rhythms. This continuity of belief allowed communities to retain identity across vast distances. Archaeological finds, pottery styles, textile patterns, and ceremonial symbols show clear traces of cultural traditions carried far from their points of origin, likely preserved through the teachings of women who ensured that the past was never lost amid change. In many regions, the artistic contributions of women reached new heights during these centuries of growth. Woven textiles featured increasingly complex patterns depicting constellations, sacred animals, and mythic narratives. Pottery became both functional and ceremonial, adorned with designs representing fertility, rainfall, or the interplay between earth and sky. Some vessels were crafted specifically for ritual use, buried as offerings near springs, caves, or mountaintops believed to house ancestral spirits. These artistic expressions reveal a worldview in which daily life and the sacred were inseparable, and women stood at the center of this interplay. Burial practices during this period offer deeper insight into the status and reverence accorded to women. Grave sites discovered in prominent locations near ceremonial centers or at the heart of long-inhabited settlements contain offerings that reflect both personal identity and communal respect. Beads carved from precious stones, pendants shaped from rare minerals, woven sashes decorated with sacred symbols, and pottery vessels containing seeds or pigments accompany the remains of women who likely held significant influence. The careful orientation of these graves toward celestial markers suggests beliefs that connected their spirits with the cosmic cycles they once guided in life. Such practices illuminate how deeply communities valued the leadership, knowledge, and spiritual presence of their women. Yet even as societies flourished, challenges continued. Shifts in climate occasionally brought years of unpredictable rainfall or colder seasons that threatened harvests. In these times, the resilience of women proved essential. Adaptations to planting, the introduction of drought-resistant crops, and the refinement of storage techniques allowed communities to endure hardships. The memory of centuries lived in harmony with the land-guided decisions that preserved life during these turbulent periods. Their responses to environmental change laid the groundwork for later civilizations, whose monumental architecture and wide-reaching trade networks would rise upon the foundation created by these early societies. In the end, The story of women in early American societies is not a tale of isolated achievements, but a narrative of continual presence. Their labor shaped fields, their wisdom guided leaders, their rituals bound communities to the sacred, and their art carried the identity of entire regions across centuries. Through their hands flowed the memory of ancestors, the nourishment of families, and the stability of settlements. Their influence can still be traced in archaeological discoveries scattered across the continent, in the patterns etched into ancient ceramics, and in the agricultural practices that transformed wild landscapes into enduring homelands. As the fires of ancient settlements burned low at the close of each day, and as stars rose above forests, plains, and rivers, women stood at the center of it all, the keepers of memory, the guardians of life, and the quiet architects of societies whose legacy continues to echo through time. Their story endures not because of conquest, but because of the steady strength they carried through generations, shaping a world that would emerge, flourish, and leave its mark upon the vast history of humanity. If these ancient voices touched your heart today, please consider subscribing to Ancient Epics and ringing the bell so you never miss the next forgotten tale. Thanks for watching.